So my first question to all the speakers, what in your view is the single most crucial design element that modern airports should prioritize for a successful blend of functionality, sustainability, and passenger experience? We would like to know, Shweta ma'am, your views first.
I was also a faculty of architecture in various cities. So we have various design elements, and one element of design is called value. It is value for everything. So according to me, the one crucial element is value, with special context to the current scenario. So for an example, we had COVID. It was a standstill situation. Entire globe was affected by it. So when you're looking into the design aspect of it, everybody had to put on their thinking caps to face that situation. While the passenger terminals were all down, the cargo terminals were all time up. People never knew there is so much of demand for cargo and goods. So that was the time where all the goods were going in and out of huge terminals. So for me, value, how which part of it you will put it? You will put it for materials, for form, for function, anything. But value is the one I think is the crucial one.
Thank you, Shweta ma'am. That is, definitely we would agree with you. Komal, we would like to know your views.
Sure. So if you ask me to put my sustainability hat, I would say efficiency. But I think from an overall, I would say the passenger experience, because at the end of the day, they're going from how quickly and how happily they can go from place A to place B. Oftentimes, you'll be like, how many people have said, "Oh, XYZ airport, I hate it," just based on their experience, and then the word of mouth goes. So a small little glitch in that experience can pretty much tarnish an airport's reputation. So passenger experience would be it.
Agreed with you, Komal, definitely. Vishwajit ji, can you share your inputs?
Okay, in my views, one of the most important, most crucial design element that modern airports should prioritize for a successful blend of functionality and sustainability and passenger experience is efficient space utilization and layout design. So if we talk about functionality, efficient space utilization ensures that the airport layout is designed to optimize the flow of passengers, baggage, and aircraft. If we talk about sustainability, a thoughtfully planned layout can incorporate sustainable design principles. This includes maximizing natural light to reduce energy consumption too. When it comes to passenger experience, the layout directly influences the passenger experience. A well-organized and aesthetically pleasing design can reduce the stress of the traveler. Clear signage, comfortable waiting areas, and strategically located amenities enhance the overall passenger journey, contributing to a positive and memorable experience. This is my views basically.
Thank you so much, Vishwajit ji, for sharing your inputs. Chanchal.
Okay, so one thing that I feel is important, I will add on to it. I will actually say two things that's important for me. One is definitely culture and the place making strategies. Like culture is very important to showcase through our terminals. The how the city, if you do not showcase the city, the culture of this place through the terminals, because these are the doorways to the city. If you do not do that, it's a loss as an architect at our end. And second, of course, is how the spatial efficiency is there. So for any kind of a building, and of course a terminal building, the efficiency of the space is what for me would be the foremost and the most important factor in the design of a terminal building.
Thank you, Chanchal, for sharing your inputs. Definitely, all the 4 to 5 points mentioned by all the speakers are quite important, and I'm sure it will be taken into consideration. We have one question in the Q&A box from Rajiv, and he wants to know, how do you equate the requirements of premium airlines, budget airlines, and charter flights into a typical airport terminal with your design sensibility? Shriyata ma'am, would you like to answer that?
I'll tell you the general trends. Typically, you have terminals which are low-cost carriers, LCC. So generally, it is separated. And in a normal terminal, you have premium lanes. So these are separate queues for the people who haven't that extra price to pay, like business class passengers or premium passengers. There's an exclusive lane for them. So putting Under one shelter, yes, the architect should put in some extra thinking caps to satisfy all of them. But in case the costs are really low, then it's a separate one. It's a low cost terminal. There, all those airlines, those passengers are separated. This is how it is handled.
Thank you, Shrita ma'am, for answering that. I'm sure Rajiv is satisfied with the answer. We have one more thought from Chetan Gupta. He says orientation of terminals is not in the hand of the architects. It cannot be taken as key element for designs, as it will vary from one project to another. So, do we agree to this? Komal, what are your thoughts?
Yes, I agree to this. And I think I mentioned that in my slides as well. But I think that is not the only thing to take it into consideration. In the example that Chanchal showed, if they were able to do the orientation optimized right, then they absolutely should. When it's challenging, when it's challenging to do so because of, existing layouts or whatever geography that is presented, you have to kind of look at the other factors that can be incorporated if orientation is not an option.
Thank you, Komal, for answering that. Mm, Moving on to Chanchal. Chanchal, I have a question for you. How can architects use passive design for airport terminals to boost energy efficiency with natural light and ventilation while maintaining the aesthetics and functionality?
I think the question that was being raised, you are in a way asking the same thing. And I think that would clear the doubt. What I wanted to express is that, see, passive design is all about how architecture, and in India, as we call as Vastu, we are called Vastukars in India, because you see, it's relevant when you talk about history. It's orientation, the positioning of sun. If you are in US, you would have a different thing. Now, if you are, I'm not talking about US. You are in India. The sun orientation, we know that for Delhi, let's assume there is some orientation that we have already has been documented. We know about it. So passive design is all about orientations. It's how you start a design. Like as I expressed even in my talk, is that uh, aligning it as possibly to the north south direction, the longer direction where the sun east and west is facing. The majority of the terminal is being showered by natural daylight. So that's the best thing that we can achieve. Like that's the maximum possibility of a site that we can take out. Now, based on that, uh, to reduce the energy. Now, when Komal was saying that net zero campus, net zero terminal building, net zero airport, this is one of the initial thing that we think before the start of a design. So passive designs and passive techniques are all about that. So starting from daylight, of course, you need ample natural light, so the energy efficiency can be increased. Now with daylight, the downside of the now you have ample light, like the sun is so much on your terminal building, but you are achieving so much of heat gain through that. All during the day, you are gaining heat because of the ample daylight that you are providing. So what we do is we actually use materials which are very high performance, like DGUs are being used nowadays. Triple glazed units are being used. Reflective roofs are being used. Even the overall, now with the advent of parametric architecture, which has heavily come into Indian architecture as well, we are able to even make curves which make it possible for us to actually reduce the solar gain on the overall terminal building. Thus, now normally you said that you should increase the thermal mass of the building. We want to take in more heat, but in a temperature like that of India, if you are gaining more heat, you would actually have to install more HVAC. You'll have to increase more energy onto the thing, and again you'll have to put in more money. So that is how we shouldn't do it. Now in terms of when we are saying that uh, passive design strategies, so orientation and layouting is one, of course, daylighting is the other part. The third thing is how to actually use shading devices, intelligent design shading devices, and not just shading devices, that we just put in a lot of aluminum louvers, a lot of copper louvers, or a lot of titanium louvers on the facade. But yes, why can't we overhang on both sides? Why can't we overhang the building roof towards the city side as well as the air side, so that the overall glass facade is shaded naturally based on the, and we create skylights at the centers, and that skylight is also filtered through high performance glass which has very low U values. So these are the passive strategies that I think is very crucial when we think. And another new thing that has come in India, it is very prevalent in Western countries, is actually introduction of green roofs. Now, when you create green roofs, that is the station, the airport terminal roof is accessible by the passengers. So what it does, it actually creates a overall thermal layer above the roof, so it does not allow the heat to get inside, thus reducing the overall HVAC load as well. And another thing would be the design of the space, the internal space. How do we design each spaces so that the overall efficiency of each spaces can be increased? So these are the few passive uh, techniques that I feel would actually, which helps us while we take up design of this terminal.
Thank you, Chanchal, for enlightening us with your insights. We have another question in the Q&A box from Tushar Shinde. He says, Komal spoke about Envision framework. So as on today, are the upcoming airports mandatory designed as IGBC or well?
Not mandated, but you are seeing more and more airports taking on that. So, for example, the two that come to mind straight up for the lead Platinum Terminal 1 at Bangalore International Airport, and also the Indira Gandhi International Airport in New Delhi, that's also lead certified as well. The other thing we are seeing in, especially in India, sort of taking more stage is the certification system called Peer, which is both of these airports that I've mentioned, especially the Bangalore one, they've adopted that. Peer is it's similar to LEED, but it focuses on improving power system performance and electricity infrastructure as well. So it's good for, helps solving aging infrastructural issues in that sense.
Thank you, Komal, for answering that. We have another question here from Chetan Gupta. He says, since we are talking in context of India, why don't we use lesser glass and instead look for other materials? Double skin facades are the best for Indian climates for most of the cities.
I also want the context of India to be showcased through our design, through our architecture of India. But you need to understand the how terminal buildings has come into place over the like 2-3 decades of uh, like global standardization that has come into play. A lot of like infrastructural agencies like IATA, ICAO, and you name it, AAI in India, all they have been given so much thought about this. There has been global technological advances, and then also you are saying that why are we doing the bad thing by using glass? Because see, there are multiple things that we need to look. If you're standing, you're in the waiting area, you cannot be a blocked box. Glass is one of the most I must say it was a best material which actually makes you feel that you are not inside a box. You need to see the air side, you need to see where your flights are coming. The lot of waiting areas are, so when you have been to the airport, you see that the waiting is huge. They have around 3,000 people at a time at the same level. They need to see where my flights are here. You cannot say that I'll use just brick over there. It actually creates a problem. But yes, with the advent of new global technologies, we can actually amalgamate both. I understand we should use actually materials which are very local to India, but yes, it depends where we want to use it. Like I have used jalis in one of the airports that I've worked previously, and it was done so that we can actually reduce the surface area of glass, of course. But then again, we need that connectivity in such a huge and high mass. We need that connectivity, we need that visual character to it. So that's why glass is one of the good materials that we are using. And yes, there are definitely much better materials, and we would look forward to actually utilizing such things. I am with you. We should use Indian context materials.
I'm going to add to what Chanchal said. I think it's important, especially, it's not the question is not more glass or less glass. The question is how is the glass used and how it all of it is modeled. So it's extremely important right now that I think if you're working on a project for an airport and somebody tells you don't do an energy model, question them. Because if you want to really understand, you don't want the glass on the south facade or or the west facade, but you want to use it intelligently. And all of this can be handled right up front in the design phase as architects and engineers. If you understand your energy profile on a building, you can have those answers correctly. I remember working on a project where we wanted to use glass on a west facade, but obviously we did not want to do it for the amount of heat gain as well as the amount of energy it would use. But uh, use balancing that with the giant canopy more cost effectively and shading actually helped us reduce the energy consumption. So, addressing that by getting intelligent designers, intelligent teams to address those by using the technology that we have in front of us, modeling it up front is really the solution versus just blank front saying yes, glass or no glass.
Both valid points which Komal has mentioned and Chanchal has mentioned. It should be an intelligent use. Like we have simulations. Even before you construct, you have simulation where you can feed in the material you want, in the kind of thickness you want, and the proportion you want, and the quantity you want to achieve the results. This is the making use of the latest technology to get what you want. If you're going for a local material like mud or straw, you check yourself, will it work? And the penny wise, pound foolish, they say, in case we want to use those materials, but you're using at what cost? If you want to make a mud wall for a terminal to get the same characters of glass, what is it that you're pumping in? So there are many factors around it. So energy efficiency is the thing which every airport operator or developer they want. And there are n number of softwares where you can take this decision. And double facades are the need of the day. Okay, it should be an hybrid. It should be an hybrid of glass because visual connectivity is very, very important. Visual access to the air side, land side, between, so glass partitions, whatever, visual access plays a very important role to reduce the stress levels. Okay, that is how it has become a very important material.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing your inputs. Vishwajit ji, I have a question for you. How can the strategic integration of natural stones in modern airport designs not only elevate the aesthetic appeal, but also enhance the cultural identity of the region?
When I talk about the answer of this question, the immediate thing comes in mind is that the strategic integration of natural stone in modern airport designs can significantly contribute to elevating aesthetic appeal and enhancing the cultural identity of a region in several ways. Like if I talk about a live project of mine, so in Bombay police headquarters, once you see that there is a stone cladded in the entire building, so that stone belongs to Bombay basically. That stone belongs to the earth of Bombay. So it was digged from Bombay and processed and installed into that particular building. So there are so many other parts also, like reflecting the local character, what we talk about. Then architecture harmony, certainly because there are three prestigious architects. So I'm no one to talk much more about the architecture part because I'm so small in their presence here. But still, I would like to add some points here, like choosing natural stones that complement or match existing local architecture establishes a harmonious relationship between the airport and its surroundings. The integration helps the airport becomes a seamless part of the cultural landscape. I'm sure the architects will agree to this. When we talk about cultural significance, the certain types of natural stones may hold cultural or historical significance for a region. Like if I talk about our parliament project, so there was a demand from the government that the stones should also be used from the premium what do you call quarries. So we used that stones from Dholpur. So so because they had to showcase the entire culture of India, of diversity of India, they had to show that. So that was the architecture demand also, and that was the demand from the client side also. So we were able to achieve that. When it comes to sustainable and a sustainable material choice, which I think the architects will be very much on the same page. What I'm going to talk about is opting for locally sourced natural stones, supports sustainable practices, and reduces the carbon footprints associated with transportation. This commitment of sustainability aligns with the value of many communities and contributes to the overall positive perceptions of the airport. In summary, if we talk about the strategic use of natural stone in airport designs, can be more powerful tool for expressing and celebrating the cultural identity of a region. By carefully selecting and integrating these materials, airports can create a unique and meaningful experience for passengers while contributing to the overall scene of the place.
Thank you, Mr. Vishwajit, for answering that. Sridhar ma'am, I have a question for you. How can architects integrate principles of adaptive reuse and circular designs in airport architecture to extend the lifespan of the structures and reduce the need for new constructions?
Yes, very much. Adaptive reuse and circular design is very much in practice. Globally, the trend is if there is a terminal which is not in use, later it is developed either into a lounge or into a transit hotel, or they use it like in India, they have used it for Hajj terminal. That is the practice. Any structure which is not in use, which is called a sweating off asset. Okay, it is not used as a terminal, but it is used like something else because some capex has already gone into it. These are some of the trends which are there, like transit hotel is one, Hajj terminal is one, and hangars is one. This is very much in use. And circular design, yes, when we are looking into the overall design, when you are doing at a master planning stage or an execution stage, the entire cycle is being envisaged, which is actually coming from the management strategy when they actually have that. So how to reuse, okay, how to make it like in your circular design, when you're looking into the main objectives, how to achieve that is also part of the management strategy. So nothing is missed. That's what I'm trying to say. When you're looking into like defining it, the purpose of it, and again, while during execution, you see to it that any structure or anything is not getting wasted. There is always a plan to reuse it.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for answering that. We have one question from Sinha. How to save water consumption while designing the terminals and utilities? Komal, if you can answer that.
So there is a few ways to do that. I think you have to look at on-site water and what are the different ways we need water for, right? One is irrigation, one is flushing of toilets, and then there is drinking water, obviously, as well. How do you say water consumption is handled again in a couple of 2 3 buckets? So if you I think I mentioned this in one of my slides, uh, for using fixtures and equipment which is efficient and use so low flow fixtures, this sometimes can be challenging in airports, given that the high demand for flush and flow. So airport systems have kind of come up with standards that they, minimum standard for fixture rate, flow rate that should be used. So using efficient fixtures is one. Secondly, considering, for irrigation, especially for landscape irrigation, especially with so much greenery being incorporated more and more in different airports, and think all four of us showed slides which are airports with greenery incorporated, right? With that demand for water, that is a great place to reuse water for irrigation. Yeah, whereas that would be one way to use it. And when I that the which water can you reuse for that? One is rainwater, the other is, and especially in climates like ours in India, condensate, where there's a lot of humidity, condensate capture coming from HVAC systems. Another great. That's a sure shot. If it rains or not, you don't know, but if it condensate is always going to be there with high cooling climate. So that's a great place for reusing water, and reusing them and that water gets extremely clean actually as part of the condensate capture process. So that's an area to use as for irrigation or flushing. If you want to use water for flushing, that typically takes more on-site treatment, which can sometimes be cost prohibitive. But if it's done thoughtfully right from the beginning, there are some successful examples of doing that.
Thank you so much, Komal, for answering that. Another question we have from Deependra Singh. What specific daylighting strategies would you like to implement in your design to ensure a well-lit terminal? How would these strategies vary based on the different areas within the terminal, such as waiting areas, check-in counters, and corridors? Chanchal, would you like to answer that?
I would I would invite Komal to actually talk about this if she wants to, because there's a lot of related to her field of, and she spoke really well on that. And if I have to add, I'll add on to it, but I am sure that she can express this better than me. Komal,
Yeah.
would you like to?
Yeah, sure. We can collaborate on this answer. So I think, to answer the question, what specific daylight strategies, I think it really depends on the part in the terminal that you're using that as. Like sometimes in the larger corridor, like the larger arrival spaces or departure with the larger halls are, a lot of times it is the top lit daylighting solar elements that are useful. But there are areas, I think you have specifically mentioned counters or corridors, you can use, sunshades. I think the important thing about daylight is, again, alluding to, I think, Sridhar, some of us have mentioned, using simulation softwares to understand the impact of daylight before you make. So I'm not going to be able to answer the questions very specific, what space affect daylight. It's going to be a different daylight strategy for every space. So especially in airport terminals, we have started doing daylight simulation in the conceptual design phases. That will tell us what is strategies working, what is not working. Sometimes, skylights, you just put on skylights, they'll just create glare. Is there any other solution to it better than that? And you see that in the simulation. You see which are areas that are creating hotspots. You see which areas are not getting daylight. So using the technology and the tools to come up with a solution for daylighting that is right for that space is really the solution, rather than just saying use sunshades or use skylights. That's how I would address it.
Yeah, and exactly, Komal, I'm fully with you. And with that, I would like to give an example, Depender. The thing is, see, as you know, a waiting area is where most of the people are there. So they want a comfort at that level. So the delight level will have to be more. But again, as Komal informed, it has to be supported through modelings at the initial stage. In check-in counters, it is preferred to not have that amount of daylight as it is required in waiting areas, because you need to look at baggages, you need to look at uh, controlled areas where you want to have an understanding of what kind of baggages are being put on the carousels, how people are getting in the queues. So it varies from place to place. And as Komal answered, it is very specific to where you want to do it. But yes, daylighting is the industry standard. You must say the greatest of the greatest architects of our times are actually making it very lit, very natural. And that is because to reduce the energy consumption of the whole industry. Aviation industry is they are guzzling in so much of fossil fuels. Around 2 to 3% of the overall pollution, CO2 emission that is being done is through the aviation industry, and that is not wrong. Of course, for development, for growth, you will have to be faster, and aviation industry is something which actually helps it. So we want to bring it down through architecture, at least at our end, and I am hoping the best of the industry is also focusing towards that.
Thank you, Chanchal and Komal, for answering that.